Imagine receiving an invitation to an elegant evening in 19th-century London. There will be candles, expensive wine, fashionable guests, and, as the main attraction, an ancient Egyptian human body being unwrapped on a table. This sounds like a scene invented for a horror film. But public mummy unrollings really happened, and they reveal a disturbing mixture of curiosity, science, entertainment, empire, and disrespect for the dead. This is Oddly Human History, the show about the strange choices real people made in the past. Today, we are asking why Europeans opened Egyptian mummies in front of audiences, what they believed they were learning, and why the familiar story of the Victorian mummy party is more complicated than the internet usually admits. First, an important correction. The popular image is of wealthy Victorians casually unwrapping mummies after dinner in private homes every weekend. Some private gatherings did occur, and wealthy collectors sometimes treated human remains as curiosities. But the strongest historical evidence concerns organized public demonstrations, medical examinations, lectures, and museum events. They combine scholarship with spectacle. Calling every event a party makes the story simpler, but also less accurate. European fascination with Egyptian mummies began long before Queen Victoria. For centuries, material sold as mummy was ground into medicines and pigments. By the 18th and 19th centuries, travel, collecting, colonial expansion, and military campaigns brought increasing numbers of Egyptian objects to Europe. After Napoleon's campaign in Egypt began in 1798, Egyptomania spread through art, architecture, fashion, publishing, and popular entertainment. Ancient objects were not arriving in a neutral marketplace. European powers exercised enormous political and economic influence. Excavators, diplomats, tourists, dealers, and local intermediaries moved objects out of Egypt through systems that rarely treated Egyptians as equal owners of their own heritage. Mummified people entered the same commercial networks as statues, jewelry, pottery, and furniture. To many buyers, a mummy was simultaneously a human body, an archaeological object, a medical specimen, a collectible, and a theatrical mystery. Those categories did not sit comfortably together. That discomfort was part of the attraction. One of the best-known figures in public mummy unrolling was Giovanni Battista Belzoni. He was an Italian explorer, engineer, strongman, and collector whose career seems designed by someone who could not choose a genre. In London in the 1820s, his Egyptian exhibitions attracted large audiences. Around this period, mummy openings became public events where lecturers promised to reveal secrets hidden beneath ancient linen. Later, the surgeon Thomas Pettigrew became so associated with the practice that he earned the nickname Mummy Pettigrew. He unrolled mummies before invited audiences and learned societies during the 1830s and 1840s. Pettigrew presented these events as serious investigations. He examined wrappings, inscriptions, amulets, teeth, bones, embalming materials, and evidence about age or disease. The room, however, was also a theater. Tickets, invitations, anticipation, dramatic pauses, and the gradual removal of bandages transformed examination into performance. The audience came to learn, but also to experience suspense. What would appear beneath the next layer? Would there be jewelry, an amulet, a recognizable face, or simply more linen, dust, and the uncomfortable reality that the object on the table had once been a person? The procedure itself could permanently destroy information. Ancient embalmers arranged bandages, amulets, resins, masks, and protective objects according to religious beliefs and funerary traditions. Once the layers were cut, pulled apart, distributed, or discarded, their original relationships could never be perfectly reconstructed. A demonstration might discover one detail while erasing dozens of others. Some attendees reportedly received fragments as souvenirs. In other cases, wrappings and remains were separated among collections. Many events were poorly documented. Modern archaeologists are left with objects that have lost their context, and context is often what turns an old object into historical evidence. Why did audiences accept this? Part of the answer is that 19th-century Europeans often treated ancient Egyptian bodies differently from recently deceased European bodies. Distance in geography, time, religion, and race made it easier to transform a person into an exotic object. Imperial power made access possible, while popular culture made possession fashionable. Science also looked different. Researchers did not have CT scanners, digital imaging, endoscopy, chemical analysis, or modern conservation standards. If they wanted to know what was beneath the wrappings, physically opening the body seemed like an obvious method. Some unrollings produced genuine observations about embalming, anatomy, disease, and funerary practice. But the word science did not magically remove showmanship or prejudice. Researchers could pursue knowledge while also benefiting from spectacle. Audiences could be educated and entertained at the same moment. A respectable lecture hall did not guarantee respectful treatment. The people who created these mummies had understood them very differently. Mummification preserved the body because bodily integrity mattered to Egyptian ideas about death and the afterlife. The process could take many weeks. Embalmers treated the body, wrapped individual parts, placed protective amulets, performed rituals, and enclosed the person within decorated coffins. The wrappings were not packaging to be torn away. They were part of the burial. This makes the public unrolling especially ironic. Europeans claimed to reveal ancient Egyptian culture by dismantling something that culture had carefully created to remain intact. Attitudes gradually changed. Archaeology became more professional, documentation improved, and museums developed stronger conservation practices. Public criticism grew. A famous 1908 unwrapping at the University of Manchester, led by archaeologist Margaret Murray and an interdisciplinary team, was carefully documented and presented as scientific research. Yet it also attracted debate about whether the value of examination justified the destruction involved. By the early 20th century, public unrolling was becoming much less acceptable. Horror fiction also changed the emotional meaning of mummies. Writers turned the passive object of examination into an active figure capable of revenge. The mummy can now stare back. Modern researchers can investigate wrapped bodies without physically opening them. X-rays, CT scans, three-dimensional reconstruction, and chemical analysis reveal bones, teeth, amulets, injuries, diseases, and embalming methods while leaving the wrappings largely intact. Technology has not solved every ethical question, but it has removed the old excuse that destruction is the only path to knowledge. Museums today increasingly discuss mummified people as human remains rather than merely artifacts. Institutions debate display, consent, cultural sensitivity, repatriation, and the wishes of descendant communities. There is no single policy accepted everywhere, but the language matters. A mummy is not simply a thing from ancient Egypt. It is an ancient Egyptian person. The popular phrase mummy unwrapping party survives because it produces an irresistible image. Elegant Victorians drinking tea while someone casually opens a pharaoh. Reality was broader and more serious. There are private gatherings, public spectacles, medical demonstrations, scholarly lectures, commercial exhibitions, and excavations. Entertainment and research repeatedly overlapped. That complexity makes the story more revealing, not less. The question is not merely why strange Victorians enjoyed a macabre evening. It is how a powerful society learned to call possession scholarship, destruction discovery, and a dead human being a collectible. History becomes comfortable when we assume everyone in the past was simply foolish. The harder lesson is that intelligent, educated people can normalize harmful practices when curiosity, status, profit, and power all point in the same direction. Today, the best researchers still want to know what lies beneath the linen. The difference is that they can ask the question without automatically cutting through the answer. If you enjoyed this animated journey into the stranger side of the past, subscribe to Oddly Human History. History was stranger than fiction, and sometimes far less respectful than it imagined itself to be.